الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
We're ready to go. Bismillah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu ma ba'd. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to a live broadcast coming all the way from Toronto, Canada. We're in Masjid, Jami Masjid. I think it's called Jami Mosque, right? That's what it said outside. Alhamdulillah. And we're online, so those of you who are online, and you've been so patiently waiting, we're sorry about the mix-up in the timing, but we're broadcasting now, alhamdulillah. For a rebroadcast of this and other exciting programs, visit our internet website at islamtomorrow.com. Our website's open 24 hours a day, and there's always plenty of free parking. That's a joke, you can laugh. Or not, up to you. Alhamdulillah. Let's let everybody know that we have a live audience. I'll give you the salams and you be real loud and come back. Remember, you don't have a microphone. Salam alaikum. About 50% figured it out. Okay. We're really broadcasting. Even though it looks like a telephone, it's a telephone. And it's an internet broadcast right now. So the subject today, we wanted to talk about the role of the family, the Muslim family in the West, especially in view of the things that are going on now. And in order to do that, we have to establish a couple of things, which we always do. We talk about what words mean and what is family and what we're talking about with family. And it's very important, the family in Islam. The family is the core, the central unit of Islam is around the family. This is very, very, very important. And to show you how important it is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in all three of the monotheistic revealed religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Allah has put the family over everything except worship to Him alone. And for the benefit of those that might be online right now that are not Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or whatever, you might like to know that in the Bible, in the book of Exodus and the book of Deuteronomy, you will find what they call the 10 Commandments. The first commandment is to worship God alone without any partners. Well, that's also in Islam. The second commandment is not to make any images. Well, that's also in Islam. And the third commandment is not to take God's name in vain. That's also in Islam. And then the fourth is what? To remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. So all of these are dealing with worship. But the fifth commandment in the Old Testament, in both of these two books, says the same thing. Thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father. And guess what? In Islam you will find the same thing, only not only does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about honoring the parents, He talks about taking care of them, and even describes their condition when they become elderly, and even when they're not able to take care of themselves, that you lower a wing of mercy to them, and that you care for them in such a way that you don't even say, oh, while you're doing so. But in addition to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us in the Quran about the treatment of the children. It's very important to know in the same context, Allah speaks to the subject of the children, because He says that it's wrong, that it's forbidden to kill your children, to take their lives, you know, when they're babies, the fear that they will take food from your plate. Because this is a subject that comes up very much today. People talk to you about the subject of abortion. People talk to you about the subject of, you know, waiting. I don't want to have any children until we get established. You know, I need to have my degree and that type of thing. But in Islam, it's very clear that this is something that we have to be very careful with. Want it higher? Yeah. This is something that we have to be very careful with, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like us to mistreat anybody, but especially not our family members. And with regard to that, the role of the family today in the West, Muslim family, this is very important to know that the children have rights. Most of the time when the shuyukh, the scholars of Islam, they come to us and they talk to us about the family, they always insist on mentioning, and I do too, that it's so important to discuss the role of the women. And they mention the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when someone came to me and he said, after the rights that Allah has on me and the Messenger of Allah has on me, who has the most rights? He said, your mother. He said, and then? He said, your mother. And then your mother, and then your father. This is showing the high status of the parents in Islam, without doubt. There is one hadith that said that the Jannah is under the feet of the mother, but I found this hadith is not sahih, but it's still a hadith, and I don't know its level, but still it stays in the same context where you can see that parents are very high, something very important. In fact, in one case, a man, he was going around the Kaaba in Tawaf. Can you do something about this stuff here? Just echoing back. And in the Tawaf around the Kaaba, he was carrying his mother on his back, and he went to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to him that I carried my mother on my back around the Kaaba. You know, that they go around it 7 times, and that's pretty big. It's like walking around somebody's house. So he said, if I fulfilled my mother's rights to me now, he said, not even for one birth pain. Look at this. Not even for one pain of having you in birth. And imagine how many other things that she did and suffered with since that boy was born. Not even one birth pain. So this is the high regards of the women and the roles of the mothers, the roles of the fathers in Islam. But this is not what I want to focus on. I want to come back to the subject of the children and their rights. The children have so much rights in Islam, and I fear that we are neglecting them. They have the right, and it's not, when we say the right, I don't mean it's an option. It's your responsibility, is what I'm saying. It's your responsibility to provide this for them, because it's their right in Islam to have it. Which is what? The proper education in Islam is very, very key. The security, of course, protection, of course, sustenance, of course, all of these things are a given. We know you're going to feed your family. We know you're going to put clothes on them. We don't ask you, you're going to put them in a house. We're not stupid. We're asking you about this subject, which is the education, the proper education for your children. I'm not going to talk to you about the education system in Canada. You know it better than I do. But I will speak about the subject in the States, what kind of education we have there, and what we call public schools. My mother taught in the public schools from the 1930s until she retired in the 1970s. So I have some background with that. I personally did some teaching myself, and I'm going to tell you that from what I know, what little bit I know, the public schools have deteriorated terribly. The quality of the building has highly improved. The technology has highly improved. But the quality of the morals has fallen down terribly in the public schools. Because in the 1930s, in the States, children would not dare speak back to their teacher or their parents. They will never do that. And in those days, the children respected the parents so much, they respected their teachers so much, that if a teacher would punish a child, the child would never tell the parents, because he knew when he went home he would get punished again. He knew it. If he said, my teacher punished me, they would say, we know the teacher punished you because you need it, but probably didn't give you enough. And they would give him more, just like that. That's what they did. Then they had sticks. They would whip you with a stick. Some of the teachers had paddles, and they would whip the children with the paddles. And for the benefit of those who don't know any better, this is what the Bible teaches. It said, if you spare the rod, you don't use it, you spoil the child. This is from the Bible. Not the Quran, by the way. Quran doesn't say beat your children. But what we're saying here is that since that time until now, a lot of things changed. The respect for the teachers is out the window. The respect for the authority is out the window. By the way, while we're on the subject of authority, when we were kids, the policemen were considered our best friends, and whenever we were outside of the house and away from the school, you always looked for a policeman because you knew he was somebody you could trust. Today, the children have no respect for the police. In fact, most of the children are afraid of the police. So where is our society going? Do you see it? Now, in the public schools in those days, the children would take an apple, and they would take the apple to school, and they would put it on the desk for the teacher, and they used to line them up. They used to line them up on the teacher's desk. So many of the people, of the children, bringing those apples in. It looks like maybe she's going to make applesauce or apple cider, I don't know. But today, the children will come in, they try to steal something from the teacher. She has to lock up her purse. It's not funny. You're putting your children in this toilet that you call a public school. One of our dear respected brothers came to us from the Gulf countries, and on the first day that I met him, he came to me, he was so excited, and he said, today is special. I said, why? He said, I put my son in American public schools. I said, you should have put him in the toilet. He said, what? I said, you know, the hammam, the toilet. He said, what? I'm talking about I put my son in public school. I said, I understand exactly what you said. You're not understanding me. I said, you should have put him in the toilet because at least you could wash it off. 10 years later, the same man came back to me, over 8 years later, came back to me crying. Crying. You know what he said? Sheikh, you were wrong. I said, I was? He said, yeah. He said, it's 10 times worse to put them in a public school than it is to put them in the toilet. I don't know where my son is. He's gone. He's treating us bad. Blah, blah, blah. Long story, long story. Alhamdulillah, we tried to help him. We worked with him. And after a period of a few months, we found his son, and he got his child back. And alhamdulillah, everything's okay. But it wasn't easy. And by the way, the father had to make a lot of major changes in the way he did business too. Because if you're from another country and another culture and another tradition system, and you come over here and you try to implement that here, and you do that in your house, and then you put your children in public school, you're going to make a split personality out of these kids. You'll make them one way at school and some way else with you. Your little daughters, when they go to the masjid, they'll wear hijab. Your boys will sit with you and pray with you in the masjid. But when they go to school, the hijab's coming off. And you don't want to know what they're going to do. You don't want to know what they do in the public schools. But there's a reason why they give free condoms to these children. There's a reason why they give them that free condom so they can go and have sex and not get pregnant or get a disease. Okay, please, do something with this. I can't broadcast like this. What we're saying is that it's important for us to realize our responsibility to our children. They have rights on us, and Allah is going to ask us about it. I want you to think about something, and I want you to put it in your mind firm so that this comes in deep. Get this in your mind, that what you're doing today is just like when you plant a tree. It will grow. It's going to grow exactly where you plant it, nowhere else. If you plant it right here, is it going to grow up over there? You know it's not. And when you care for it and raise it up, it's going to be what it was. When the seed that you put in the ground is the kind of seed that it's going to be. If you plant an oak tree, it's going to be an oak tree. It's not going to be a tomato plant, is it? So there's no sense pretending and having these high dreams, these high goals. Oh, my son, he's going to be this and he's going to be that. No, it's not the way it's going to be. If you don't plant the tree in the right place, it's not going to grow up in the right place, is it? And if you don't plant tomatoes, you're not going to get tomatoes either. You have to think what you're doing. Because just in a few years, you could be talking to somebody from the police department who's explaining why your child was arrested. Just in a few years, you can be talking to some counselor who's telling you why you're not going to see your children again. You have to understand you are not back in your country, and this is not Islamic law or any form of it. So in order for you to be able to adjust, to raise your children over here, you have to stop and think that this is a part of a condition of understanding Islam. And what do I mean? Imam al-Shafi, when he was in Iraq, he gave fatwa, many fatwa. These are written, recorded Islamic rulings that have numbers in his signature. When he was the mufti in Egypt, in Cairo, do you know what? He made the similar questions, he made different fatwa. And they asked him, did you change your opinion? He said, no. He said, the ahwal, the condition is different here than it is over there. So please, my brothers in Islam, understand how important it is to know your condition. And don't play games. Don't come in the masjid here and listen to people telling you about Hadith of Rasul in Medina, and then you're going to try to make that work over here just like it is. And you know that's not real. You just playing in the masjid. You got a long list of hadiths you quote to each other here or in the parking lot, but then when you get out in the street, you don't know what to do. Because you're kidding yourself. I'm not saying anything wrong with the hadith. I have to follow myself every single day. But the point I'm saying is, we have to understand everything in the context of where we are and what time it is. We're living in a time that was mentioned by Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. And he described these times so clear that you would have to be a fool not to see the comparison. And I'm talking about non-Muslims, where I could show them in the end of Riyadh al-Salihin and show them the hadith in the English translation and show them the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times, and they said, my God, that must have been a real prophet. Everything he said came true. And when the enemies of Islam and the non-Muslims can look at our religion and understand this, why can't we? Why can we not realize that this is right now, and we've got a big responsibility? And that responsibility that I'm talking about is our families, our children. By the way, you're listening to Islam Tomorrow. We are broadcasting live from the Jami Masjid here in Toronto, Canada. And we invite you to visit us here on this internet website and at adli.net every day, because we have ulama, scholars of Islam, who visit our website from Egypt and from other countries, here in Canada and as well in the States. So remember that it is open 24 hours, and it could be that you could come on in the middle of the night and find somebody talking. So just come on in and visit our website, and it is open 24 hours a day and always plenty of free parking. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're talking about the subject of the role of the family here in the West and in these days. And I'm being real serious today. Normally, I know a lot of you who are online now, you're saying, where's the jokes? I can't find any jokes when I look at our children, when I see our children who are in these horrible conditions. I can't find anything funny about looking in the face of a 13-year-old child sitting in juvenile detention. I don't find any humor in a 17-year-old boy that's locked up, possibly facing the rest of his life in prison. I can't see anything humorous about a 19-year-old boy that's going to be raped by other men in a prison tonight. I can't find anything very humorous about that at all. Especially when somebody could warn you and save that from happening. And what am I talking about? What is the solution? Now, obviously, I have a solution. I wouldn't bring up the problem. I think one of the worst things anybody can do is talk about problems with no solution. But where to start? Where to start immediately is your own home. Because the first place a child is educated is in their own home. The first 7 to 8 years of a child's life are the most formative years. Ask any psychiatrist, or better yet, ask Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did he tell us about the whole entire makeup of a human being? What did he tell us about how a child is and what happens to them in the very first formative years? He said every child is born on the fitra of al-Islam. Every child is already born in the natural submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Fitra of Islam. He said, but it's their parents that raise them up to become Jews or Christians or fire worshippers. Majusi. It means that those years are the most formative of all. And it's our responsibility. Allah gave us amana. He gave us a trust. And that's this child. This boy, this girl, these children, they are our responsibility. And Allah is going to ask us about it. From the time they're born. Do you know in Islam there's something with the moment they're born, isn't it? Don't we call the adhan in the right ear? Isn't that a part of the baby being born? You call the adhan in the right ear. Do you know that? Not the left ear. That's something, that's weak, okay? The iqama in the left ear or whatever, that's a weak deal. But for sure, the adhan in the right ear. For sure. We even have a celebration. We slaughter sheep, 2 sheep, if we have a boy, is it? Immediately, when the child's born, Islam is showing you things to do with your child immediately. And after a few days, you shave the head and take the hair and weigh it on al-mizan, and then on the scale, and then give an equal amount of gold in sadaqah. Yes or no? Yes. So you see, even from the very beginning, Islam is having direction for these babies. So it's very important for us to think about it. This is not just the sunnah. This is not just something fun. This is something important. From the very time they're born until they're old enough to really make decisions for themselves, it's your responsibility. They need to know Islam. And if you're out here working 2 jobs a day, and your wife's working another job, how are they going to learn Islam? From the TV set? From the babysitter? From the nursery school? You say, but brother, I need 2 jobs. How else am I going to keep up these payments on this house? Or on this car? What you doing with payments? What are you doing fooling around with riba? Huh? You know what's harb? What's harb? That's the word that Allah used in the ayah telling you about riba. And subhanAllah, every time I go any place, I keep hearing this same question come up. What about riba? What about pick up your Quran and read it? It's Surah Baqarah, 280. Just read it and get over it and get away from it. I need a fatwa. I know what you need. It ain't fatwa. You need a mental enema. It's sick, man. You're playing, and it say in the Quran, Allah says you get up like somebody touched by shaitan. You got majnoon, like you got a shaitan in you. And that's why, in case you haven't figured it out yet, that's why you keep looking for another fatwa to say it's okay to do it. Because you really have got a problem. And I'm telling you, it's serious. Not just because of this, because you're affecting your whole family. Because you're going to have another job and another job. How many jobs can you get in one day? How many 8-hour jobs can you do in a 24-hour day? So that's going to be number 1. Stop spending money. If you don't need to spend it, don't spend it. Your family has rights on you and that money. By the way, brothers, do you know this in Islam? If you don't pay your bills, do you know your wife has the right to go and take the money out of your billfold and pay your bills for you? Do you know that? This is haq. So don't think, oh, that's my money. Because it's not. Allah told you in the Quran, you work for her. Oh, yeah. An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 34. Allah said, the rajulan, the men are the protectors. That means a security guard, okay? And the providers or the maintenance men, that's custodian, right, for the women. So you already got a job. When you signed up to become a husband, that's what the job you got. But don't worry, you had that job anyway, because you have the same responsibility for your mother, for your sister, and for your daughter. Because he didn't say your wife, he said for what? For the women. So that's back to the subject now of the children, though. When your children are at home in those early years, they need you there for a portion of the time, and they definitely need their mother there. There's no reason for your wife to have a job. You know why? Because in Islam, any money she makes isn't yours anyway. It does not go to any expenses of the household. That's for her trinkets and toys. If she wants jewelry, fur coats, fancy stuff, that's up to her. That's her money. It's not your money. Not a penny. Not a farthing. I always wanted to say farthing. I feel better. Alhamdulillah. Not a dinar. Imagine that. And not a shekel. What? I know you guys have loonies and toonies. I guess no Looney Tunes either, right? All of it's hers. So why is she out here working? She need to be home with that child, because that's her responsibility to take care of the house when you're not there. How's she going to do that if she's got a job somewhere? Now, you got a job. You got a clear job. Go do it. And she's got a job too. She needs to do it. That's how it is. And I don't want to hear about all this modern jib-jab about, oh, well, you know, I'm modern. That's crap. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us what the deen is. He laid it out 1,400 years ago. And if you don't want to be a Muslim, that's your choice. But don't try to screw up Islam and pretend that that's what it's supposed to be. I'm talking real straight, by the way, because this is a very important subject. The subject of our children, our families. Because guess what? In a few more years, if we don't do something about it, we're not going to have any families. We're not going to have any children. We're not going to have any Islam left. We're going to have a big, fat mess. So we've got to get on the ball. One of the things you can do, as soon as that child is old enough to even start talking and walking, immediately you can begin to teach them the Arabic language, Lagu Arabiya. Yes, I said Arabic. And I know you're in Canada. And I know those online are in many other countries. And you're wondering why I said Arabic. The Deen of Islam came in the Arabic language. That's the best way to understand it. And if you said, yeah, but how can I do that when I don't know Arabic? Well, guess what the answer to that is? Duh, go learn. And when you're teaching your children, you'll learn too. It's very important what I'm telling you. You need to know it. Now, as regards the language of the Jannah being Arabic, those hadiths are not strong. So that's not the point. Learn your Arabic here. Don't wait for Jannah. Okay? Learn it here so you can make the Jannah. Because you need to know the Arabic here so that you can understand how to use the hadiths and understand the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Quran. Very important. Next, after you've started with them with the Arabic language, the next thing to do is to begin to teach them the adab of a Muslim. The virtuous, good way to do good deeds. The proper treatment, the proper respect. And the children need to know what's right and what's wrong early. You don't wait till they're 16 years old and then come up there and get in their face and try to straighten them out. It's too late. You wait till they're 16, they're looking at, I got a year and a half to go and I'm out of here. The time to start is when they are young. And show them the right way. Because they're going to appreciate it so much. And be close to your children. Now let's talk about something else. I want to talk to you about the subject of hitting. One of the problems that I find that a lot of times when men are frustrated and they can't vent their frustration any other way, they begin to take it out on their family. Brothers, this is haram. Anybody knows me, and you online or listen to me right now, know I very seldom throw the word haram out there like that. I'm throwing it out on this subject because you know it and I know it, it is haram. Because you're big and strong and you want to use your muscles and you take it out on your wife or your children, brother, fear Allah. Taqallah. Because you're just adding this up. You're adding it up on the Day of Judgment. They're going to take from you until you got nothing left. Don't do that. When you feel ghadab, when you feel anger coming on you, what did the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell you? What did he tell you? You remember? If you're standing up, sit down. And you're right, make wudu is the other one. That's very important. And that cool water will cool down that shaitan in you that's making you get hot. What do you think's making you get hot? The shaitan is from the jinn, and the jinn are made from what? Smokeless nar, fire. And that's what you're feeling. Don't get angry. One person went to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, advise me. He said, la tagdab. He said, and more? La tagdab. And more? La tagdab. Don't get angry. Don't get angry. Don't get angry. What's it say? Okay, we're gonna wrap it up here because we have to break and turn the program back over. And I want to end with this by mentioning public school. Again, don't do it. Either put them in the Islamic school or buy the curriculum and teach them at home, or both. But whatever you do, spend time with your children. It's the best investment in your family you can possibly make. Not all of the new cars and new computers and motorcycles and pickup trucks, CB radios, boats, whatever you were thinking about buying, there's none of it is going to be worth your time with your children. Give up some of those luxuries, then you won't have to work so many hours, then you'll be able to spend more hours with your children. Just walk around the park is worth $1 million to that child. And who am I talking to? Myself. I haven't seen my family in so long, I don't know if they'd recognize me right now. They called me today and they said, Daddy, we want to go to the circus, but we don't want to go without you. I said, I'm in Canada. They said, Daddy, you promised, and it's the last day of the circus. What can I do? So I'm the biggest hypocrite here, and probably the worst person. So all that you just heard wasn't aimed at you, and I wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. I was talking to myself. And I ask Allah to forgive me. I ask Allah to make all of us do better with our families. Ameen. I ask Allah to join all of our families together on the haqq of La ilaha illallah and bring us together as one big, beautiful family on the Day of Judgment. Ameen. We can remember that the Muslims are brothers to Muslims. And that means sisters to Muslims as well. So we should treat each other with the highest and greatest honor and respect, regardless of age. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار آمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. آمين. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Visit us on the internet at www.islamtomorrow.com.